This is the Hee Wing F-01, and this is the base of the fuselage, and I'm going to start the build with this. Now I've already looked at the parts like the rear motor assembly, and if I take the main part and fit this on, that's how that goes, but that's quite difficult to fit the motor in. So what I'm going to do is not do any of that first, but I have put an ESC that is suitable. It's a 30 amp ESC, I believe. It's a 2400 2206 motor, which is pretty much the same as what Hee Wing supply, and that's going to go here. This has already been fitted with some VHB tape, very high bond tape. That's going to fit there. It's a bit wide, I might have to do a little trimming here and here. This is going to fit on the back, and there's a bit of loose wire, and the reason for that is that as I'm building, I'm going to have to put the two sides together, the top and bottom together, and then this is going to go around them. So this has to go on after. So I'm going to fit this all down, fit the tops and bottoms down, and then that will go on last, and then I can fit the motor on the back and just tuck in the extra loose wire. So that's the plan, but before I can do that I have to fit the woodwork. Woodwork? Yes, it's got woodwork, and that is a piece here and a piece here, which strengthens up the rear, and it's got these two which are unique to this model, these little runs that go forward and back and that allow you to fit on. Once these are secured down, it allows you to fit on things like the FC, flight controller board, onto that and just screw it down. You can adjust it to get the proper CFG. I'm going to run this on a 1500 4S, which will sit nicely there, and it's going to be running on a DJI Cadex Vista, which will be up the front here. I might mount it this way upright to get more air over it, not sure yet. But before I can do any of that, I have to get these stuck down. Now, fitting plywood to this sort of EPO foam, actually this is EPP, it has like a soapy feel. So what I need to do is work out a glue that's going to bond these two together really well. Now, previously I've used E6000 for this, and I found it doesn't actually do the best of jobs. Actually no, that was You Who Poured that didn't do a good job. E6000 does a good job, but it needs a bit of keying. So what I'm going to do first is take the underside of these and the underside of these, and I'm going to scratch them up a bit without trying not to cut myself at the same time. So I'm just going to okay, so they're all scratched up. I have some more E6000 on order, but currently I've got very little. I've got just enough to do this. Also, when they mould this, they use a release agent that can cause things not to stick together very well. So I'm just going to get a bit of toilet roll and some isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just going to wipe down the areas where I'm going to glue first. not too much. Whoops. And I'm just going to wipe those areas with this glue, just to make certain there's none of that release agent in there. Woof. Strong smell. And then finally, I'm also going to key this. It goes brittle, whereas E6000 doesn't. Right. I've also, you can buy little tiny zip ties from Screwfix. It's about £2 for 200 or so, so they're only a penny each. And they make great little stirrers, spreaders, and they're so cheap you just throw them away after, which is great. So let's get some glue down, and as you can see I'm pretty close, pretty low on E6000. Don't buy the new one. If you can buy the original jeweler's type, it was actually designed for sticking on gems to rings. And because it's absolutely brilliant stuff. So I'm just going to chuck that away because I don't want it making a mess everywhere. And remember, E6000 is primarily a contact glue. So what you want to do is squish it together, make certain you get it on both parts and pull it apart. Try and get a good coverage on both parts. There's a little bit mist on that, so let's put a little bit more on there. Just a little bit more. Okay. The only problem with E6000 is it does dry up on you. You have to keep it done up and try and keep it top upwards, because it will seep out and it will lock itself on really tightly, and that's no good to anybody. Right, let's do the other. Let's do the other two while they're drying. In fact, no, I'll let them dry off first and then I'll do the other two. Let's not rush it. I don't want to put it on my cutting surface because it makes an awful mess. So I'll cut this a little bit of time out. I'm going to wait a couple of minutes, okay? Okay, this is just about gone off. It's gone to very tacky, which is what I want. A bit like my jokes, very tacky. So push them into place. Lovely. Now I'm going to put some of this glue down here. Just trying to run just a small bead around there. Trying not to make a mess everywhere. It's a bit like other contact adhesives, Evo Stick. It tends to string a bit, so you've got to try not to get strings of it everywhere. Right, let's spread this. I think I might need a bit more. Yeah, that's not enough. It's a good glue, but it's no miracle worker. That's not going to be enough. Let's put a bit more. Just a bit more in this middle area, I think. See it stringy. A bit more at that end. I was about to say you can't have enough of this, but you certainly can. Too much and you actually weaken the joint. Now this E6000 is good on EPO and EPP foam. If you put it on EPS, expanded polystyrene, it will totally eat it, and it will destroy EPS foam. So don't use it on that. Right. Push that down, and then I'm going to lift it up. Check the coverage. Nice coverage. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah, a little bit, not quite enough there. So, I will be cutting this up a lot because I don't want to bore everybody totally with this build. So just making sure we get a really nice coverage on all the bits. They say use this in a well ventilated area. Well, I live in a house that was built in 1881. It's drafty, so I'm well ventilated whether I like it or not. So again, we're going to cut for this just to go off a bit. Okay, that's gone off enough for me to stick it into place. I find that E6000 likes time to go off to full strength. So your best bet, once you've got it stuck in, is to find some way of weighting it down or putting some pressure in some way. So I can't really weight the back down easily because it will cause problems at the front, and if I weight both ends it will cause strain here. So at the back I'm going to use just some masking tape, cheap masking tape. Actually this is 3M, quite expensive masking tape, and I'm just going to put a bit of tension on that and wrap it round. And again at the end as well. So that will. The nice thing about masking tape is the air can get through it. So, and E6000 needs the air to dry. So I've also put masking tape on these. See, that one's already popped up a bit. So I'm going to put masking tape on these for a different reason. Because once I've done that, put the masking tape on, I'm going to use some 6S batteries, which are nice and heavy, to weight that bit down. I just want that to stay down, and I'm going to leave that overnight. I won't touch this now until the morning, or until tomorrow anyway. I'll put this over here and it can just sit there and think about what it's done. Obviously that means I can do no more on that part of the body, but what I can do is check that I've got this rotating in the right direction. It doesn't really matter too much, I think I've got it right, but we can check it. And a good way of checking it is if you secure your motor down, just stop it, stop it moving about. Take the nut off the end, and I'm going to get the standard prop that I'm going to be turning. I might either turn this or I'll turn a 3-blade prop. I do like the 3-blade props because they tend to give off a 3-blade quad prop, because it tends to give a little bit less vibration than these cheap nasty ones. This is a 6x4. On the quad I'll go for a 5x4 or a 5x5x3, one of those two combinations. So let's take that off. and it's the numbers. I don't know if you can see the numbers on this. They're going to go forward, and because this is a pusher, that means they're going to go that way. And if you see, that's not connected in any way, it's loose. So that can't put enough pressure to cause me any problems or any danger. I'm going to put the motor on a servo tester set to manual, put it onto maximum. I'm just going to calibrate this ESC to the servo tester for the moment. So 2 beeps. Right, turn it down. 2 beeps, and the beep saying confirmation. Now if I turn this up, is it going to turn the right way? And you can see it's turning the right direction, and because it's loose on there, it's not any danger. Good. So I've got the motor soldered up correct to the ESC. That's great. This, of course, if you get the motor going the wrong way, you've got 2 choices. If it's a digital ESC, like a quad EFC, you can use BL Heli to reverse the direction of it. Or if it's a sort of no name brand type one, I think this is actually a Hee Wing one. I think so. And I don't have the programming instructions for it. So to change directions, just take any 2 wires and swap them over, and it changes direction. That's a well-known thing with ESCs. Right, it's now tomorrow, and I've taken off the masking tape, and these are nice and strong and held in there. Next stage is to start thinking about fitting the electronics a bit more. Going back to the motor's going to fit on the back here, as we showed. That's fine, and I've got enough gap in the wires here which will allow me to fit it on, then fit the tail on. These can just tuck in, that'll be fine. But this ESC with its nice big capacitors, which are good for better for the electronics, better for the transmission, the video, it's good to have good nice capacitors on your ESC. If I look at this, it jams up against these, and if I push that right up against that, the capacitors are on this lump of EPO here. So I'm thinking either cut this wood here a little bit and allow the ESC to come forward back a little bit, or cut out a little bit of EPO here to allow the capacitors to sit in. And I think I'm going to go with the latter because I want to keep as much strength in the rear as possible. If I look at the rear hatch, the top of the thing, you can see that pays almost no structural support anyway. So I'm going to eventually put some glue in there for the spar, but you can see that's not covered over or anything. There's a battery hatch, there's a cover here for airflow out, in and out. That's fine, that won't be affected. And so if I make a couple little cuts and just allow this ESC to seat down, that's not going to affect structural strength at all. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to make a couple of small cuts there. Sorry about my squeaky chair. I'm going to make a couple of little cuts just to take out the sides for the capacitors, which is about that. It should be easy. This stuff cuts really, it's quite difficult to cut because it's spongy. You can see the knife. The thing is to have a very sharp knife when it comes to cutting EPO. And I'm just going to cut down here. Saw in action. So that's released it on the sides. And in the front, so I've just got one more cut this way. So I'm going to use one of these extension blades. That way I can get it pretty flat in there and get that cut level with the floor. So if I just go in there and cut that, that should come out fairly cleanly, not too bad. Yep, that's not too bad. And now, just a little bit there to get rid of. Now hopefully, always put the top on your knives. Put your knives away, because I always end up hurting myself. Right, so now, that should allow that, yeah, that tucks nicely in there. That's not going to affect the carbon fibre spar, and that sits nicely there. So that's now a good fit for the ESC. That's going to fit nicely there on the end of the container. All good. The next thing to worry about is electronics, and just thinking, I've already checked with the this fits the camera. This is the Calyx Polar, fits absolutely beautifully in the front here. So you can see that, absolutely lovely fit. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with that in the front, and that. So I'm going to put that in after just a couple of dabs of hot glue, which you can always release hot glue using isopropyl alcohol. It's magic. It just removes hot glue effects. This is the. I'm worried about damaging this wire. It's been loose too long. So that's going to fit somehow in the front. We've got a wooden piece that I can fit it onto. The aerial, and now I want to be able to get to that, which is the so that's the upright, which is the how you update software on these Calyx Vistas units. So I need to be able to get access to that, and having it right up the front is going to make it quite difficult unless I've got a right angled USB lead, which I do have, but why make life difficult for myself? So what I'm going to do is fit this way round. The aerial's going to come round and come up the front here. I'm going to 3D print a little thing to go into this little slot here that Hee Wing diatone have nicely marked up. This is if you're running the full air unit with the two aerials, you run them through those holes. That's what they recommend. But I'm going to use that position, not quite there moulding, and that will be the aerial up the front like that. So that will be fine. Wiring will go down the side here. I've got to extend these wires a little bit, or I might just replace them. There's 4 wires. There's power, and what I've got here, again, it's in an ability to keep clean power to the electronics. I've got a 12 DC to DC converter, so this puts out 12 volts, which is a really good voltage for this. They recommend 11 to 16 volts, so 12 volts is on the lower side. It's going to produce less heat. And on this side it can take battery voltage up to 6S. So I'm going to put this will be mounted on the side here somewhere to allow airflow over it. These don't get very hot anyway, and that will be connected to the battery side. There's a socket on the flight controller that has battery voltage, and that will be connected into that. I'll show you that in a moment. So that's the video side thought out. So we're okay. So I think I'm in a good position to close up the top here, assuming I've got enough E6000. I need to run that through beforehand, because where's the rear plate? I won't be able to get the rear plate over the motor and obviously through, so I need to thread this through. I'm just trying to save myself time in the long run. So that's ready to go. Let's stick this down. I've already put, in this case, 3 layers of VHB just to build it up to allow for the thickness of the capacitors. If you can see, that means it's going to be running on the VHB and not on the capacitors. So I'll just use a bit of a knife just to peel off the I hate taking the red bit off this. There we go. Sorry, camera on the left. I have another camera here to catch views that you get blocked with. So that's the VHB uncovered, and I'm just going to place this right there. Push that down. I find that VHB tape sticks pretty well to EPO foam or EPP foam, but it can take a while to sort of get full grip, so that can have some time. That fits in there fine, and in actual fact the top part of this doesn't press on these bits here at all. I don't know if I close this up I can show you that, hopefully. Just in there. No, you're not going to see it, but there's this section just here is not glued to the top surface of this, curved straight, so we're good there. That's fine, and that's lined up terrific. What I'm going to do next, before I go in, I'll just show you the Wing 4. I'll show you the Wing 4 here. Take that right out of the way. This is the flight controller I'm going to use. It's a bit unusual. The battery will go to these 2 contacts, and then we've got contacts to supply power to the 2 ESCs, but there's no control for the ESC here. The servo motor control is up that end, and it's quite a limited number of pins for an F4 flight controller. So I've had to really think quite hard on how to map these, and I'll put a picture up here. Don't know if you can see that. Hopefully that's on both cameras. I've gone through all the pins at this end and decided which pins will be for which. They very helpfully put down a sort of basic idea of what to connect to everything. So I've got TBS receiver. Yeah, I'm going to be using Crossfire. That's R5TX, R5 and TX5, which is R5 and TX5 are here, but there's 5 volts but no ground, so I'm going to take power from down here. So it's going to be like two pairs. Similarly, the GPS, TX2 GPS, so that's going to be on that one. This is for an airspeed sensor. I could use that 5 volts, but where's the ground? I haven't got ground. So again, I'm going to use these off the servo 5 and 6, which I'm not using. I'm only using servos 3 and 4 for the wings. And there's motor 1 connection for the ESC motor 1. You can use either of them. Now I need 1 extra TX RX for the Mavlink stuff. Well, Mavlink, yeah, the CMS data that's used for the OSD in the hacked Crossfire, hacked DJI. So I'm going to use TX1, which is on these 2 pins, and at the top here we've got ground and we've got BAT. Now if we look at BAT down here, that's battery voltage. So that's what the little DC to DC converter is going to go plugged into. This is the video out, which would normally go for an analog transmitter, video in, which would go to your camera, hence the VCC, which is nominally set to 5 volts. So that would normally be your camera out and your analog transmitter in. Camera in and analog transmitter out. But I'm just going to be using the power there and send the video signal, the OSD via these two, TX1, RX1. So we've got a solution, everything's got a place. So next thing, I'm just going to use a bit of tape to hold this down so it doesn't get in the way with the glue in. Just going to stick that down. That keeps that from flopping around. And I'm going to stick the motor in this. Ooh! Now there is a shim, and I'm not sure about this. There's a shim to allow for angling the motor, and I'm not sure which way it's supposed to go. It's a very thin shim, and I probably don't need it. It's such a minor angle. I don't know if that shows on there. So I'm thinking, do I want the motor? I probably want the motor to go down, but that will go on the back here. That will go between the motor and that. So advice please from yourselves. Do I shim the motor angled slightly down? Do I shim it slightly up? I can't imagine slightly up. I can imagine that if you put power and it's slightly up, it's going to force it into a loop. Or do I shim it left and right? I've never bothered with shims left and right on pushers. I find they don't need it. They don't have the rotating airflow onto a rudder, which doesn't exist in this. They're wingtip ones that need a sort of right angle that you do if you have a prop at the front of a plane. So I'm thinking, do I even bother with this shim? So your views would be good. I think I'm going to shim the motor slightly down, so at more power it pushes the nose slightly down. I think that will make for a more stable flight. Something I would like your advice on. Right, let's just sort of stick that together a little bit so it's a bit more controlled. So next thing, let's put that back in the ESC, electronic static, ESD packet, and glue these two together. Now I have noticed that the top of the model doesn't fit properly. If I just push it down, it's not a good fit. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually just tape this into place. You can see that that doesn't fit properly, but if I push it into place, that brings these out a little bit and makes it fit a lot nicer there. So I'm going to tape that down as well. All this, I absolutely love masking tape for this sort of thing. On EPP foam, it's just the best for holding stuff, holding shit straight. So it's actually difficult to fit. Let's fit the front on. That's fronts down nicely. Same on back. Okay, so that's held that flush with the fuse, but this could still bend here, and I want it straight on the inside. What am I going to do? Is that going to work? That's straight. And that's straight. Good, so that's going to work. So, with that lid fitted, everything's working a lot better. So, I guess the next thing is to scratch this up, put a load of E6000 down. Oh, I've got to wipe it first. Let's just make certain we've got all the moulding off here. And getting high at the same time, it seems. Right, that's that bit. And still drop more. My first lot of IPA, isopropyl alcohol, I bought from RS Components and it cost loads. Now I just get it on eBay and it's so much cheaper. I bought another litre of the stuff for like £8. So, and it's the same make as this and it's good stuff. It's certainly 99.9% pure, which is what you want. See, it doesn't fall apart like if you put water on toilet paper. Right, so let's glue this together. E6000, where are you? There you are. Now I'm going to get a slightly bigger spreader for this one because these quite large areas. So, oh, if you take one of these cable ties. They do make good spreaders, cable ties, and they come in all different sizes. You can't see it, but I've got a chest of drawers here which has got all my stuff in, and if you cut these like this, just at a little jaunty angle at the end, on a big old cable tie like this you can get 4 spreaders for one cable tie, so that's great. So you just end up with a little spreader like that, which is absolutely brilliant. Where shall I put this? Let's put the glue on the bottom first. Oh, that's locked in so well. E6000 glues its own tube up if you're not careful. Oh, I haven't scratched it, have I? Oh, forget my own head if it wasn't screwed on. My mother used to say. Careful not to cut my wires. Glues. It's always better to give it a little purchase, something to actually get into the glue. On the outside, you can just rub it off, which is great, and it won't hurt the foam. That looks good. That's spread everywhere. Pardon me. Offer this up, press it down, press it together, really get it all mated together. Pull it apart, it's not wanting to come apart. You can see it strings up, a bit like pour or foam tack, but it's more flexible than either of those glues, which makes it perfect for EPO or EPP foam, which it has a flexibility. So I'm just waiting for this to go off. Okay, that's good enough. So next, let's offer these two up, and I want to make certain they go together first time right, because now it's gone off a bit, it's going to grip hard. So that's good. And for good measure, like I do with anything like this, put some tension on with a bit of tape. Same hit this side, and I will have a really strong fuselage. The tighter you can get these to connect, the better the overall strength will be. So just really making certain it's taped down really well. Just putting a lot of pressure on that. Cool. Yeah, I'm not hearing any or seeing any movement there. I think a little bit here. I think there's still a little bit there. So let's just put some more tape there, and I'll do the same for the other side as well. Be even about it. Right. Looks horrible, but it all comes off fine, and that will be a good solid fuselage for the future. Okay. And again, I'm going to put that, so I'm not going to touch that till tomorrow. So here's the bolt. You can see this is on the expanded picture there. And you do have an arrow which shows forward. So move it towards you. I'm going to plug it in. It's recognised. And COM7 has come up. I'm just holding it carefully on top of the ST, the actual CPU part. So the arrow is pointing away from you. Let's connect up, and we see a picture of a wing, a generic wing, and you can see tipping up and rotating. It all matches. That's cool. And if I look in the log, does it say the version? No. Unique device ID. Let me pop into CLI and do version. And you see this one is the FF_F35 Lightning, and you can see we're on running 5.1. So that's all correct. Let me go back to the setup, which will restart it. And we'll reconnect. There we are. Now this is an unusual board. If you notice at the top, we've got a magnetic compass on there. This has a compass chip on the bottom, and I've already calibrated that. So calibration is the usual up, down, left and right, but on the right here we also have a calibrate compass, and what you do is you make certain you've got a nice secure USB lead, and you just turn it around a lot until it's happy. That's how it works. The mixer, I've already put it in as a flying wing, done load and apply. That's why, and until you do that, you get blocks on this front part. So once you put the mix in, it will put the flying wing graphic in. So outputs, so we just got two servos. And yeah, you can see as I move it, you can see the iNav is trying to fly the board, thinking that was wind disturbing it. I'm just going for standard protocol. This is not, the ESC I have is not a digital one, so standard is fine. Ports, this is what I've set up according to this. So we've got USB VCP, that's this port. That's the port connected to the computer. UART1, which we set as the DJI data. I don't know if that's showing in the camera. I don't have a viewfinder on this, but I'll bring it forward. So UART1, TXRX1 is the DJI data, so that's set to MSP. I'm not sure if that's the correct, actually it's not. So we'll take that off, UART1, and we're going to set that, because it's going to be a hacked version, it is the hacked version, to HD0 VTX, so it's going to send the data. UART2 is GPS, so UART2, we're going to turn on GPS. UART3 we're not using. UART4 we're not using. UART5 is crossfire, so UART5 I'm going to set that to crossfire somewhere. TBS5, no, this is RunCam. We're just going to set serial RX on it, that's right. So that's the serial connection for our receiver. So what have we done? We've done the data for GPS, we've done crossfire, we've done the data for DJI. Powers, that's fine, and the motor is on the bottom, which is already sorted on the outputs. So that's all the settings we need to do for the port. So we'll save and reboot that. And that's all set, I think. GPS HD0 VTX, which is what we need for that. UART5, yeah, that's good. Configuration, what have we got? We've got IC2 speed. The alignment of the board is going to be arrow forward, so I don't have to change this. I'm going to leave at the moment the mag alignment at clockwise 90 degrees. I don't know. We shall have to check that once we get it in the plane and get the VTX running. I can see which is north as far as the plane's concerned. Stop motors on low throttle, yeah, because we're not flying a quad. Enable CPU based serial ports, no, we're not using it. GPS for navigation telemetry, yes please. Telemetry output, yes, because we want to get that back to our transmitter. Reversible motors, no. Analog RSI, no, because TBS supplies digital. Multicolour RGB strip, not at this moment, I might add them. OLED screen, I tried that once, and though it had nice data on it, it was useful to see how many satellites and everything. In anything other than overcast light, it was just bloomed out by the sunshine or whatever, so that was pointless. Black box, I haven't got a black box on this one. Serial based SPI, no. OSD, yes. Down here we'll leave that as it is for the moment, current meter and everything. We'll save and reboot that. Fail safe, well I want it to return to home, that's good. Don't need to change that. PID tuning, I'm going to leave it as defaults at the moment. I'm not going to change anything, but I am on the mechanics going to add 6 degrees. Everything I've seen on the internet says that this particular wing needs a 6 degree or thereabouts nose up angle, so we'll add that in. Advanced tuning, am I going to change anything in that? don't think so. I see the GPS is showing is red at the top there because we haven't connected any GPS. Right, advanced wing settings, fixed wing auto launch. Yes, I'm going to use my standard stuff that I use. Now, this is going to annoy many of the fixed wing ILAV groups. I do a shake and then throw. I like to know the motor's at full throttle before I let it out my wing hand. Motor throw angle, which as it says, consider 45 degrees, that's fine. Motor delay, half a second is way too much. I use 200 milliseconds for that. Minimum launch time, don't worry about that. If you see, it's how long to execute. A launch mode to execute at least this time and ignore stick movements. No, I want it to listen to me straight away. Motor spin up time, fine. Launch throttle I tend to use a bit higher at first, so I'll put 1850 there. Climb angle 18 degrees. Launch timeout I set to 8 seconds, which is 8,000 milliseconds. I want it to have plenty of time to climb. Maximum altitude in centimeters 12000. So 120 meters. I don't want it going above that. And the end transition time of 3 seconds. I usually cut that down to 2 seconds because I think it just takes too long. Return to home, at least linear descent. I wanted to come back down to my return to home altitude of 5,000, so 50 meters above me. On forward spiral climb, yes, I want it to climb up in a spiral, not straight ahead. Land after return to home, never. Minimum return to home distance 5 meters, yep, that's fine. I'm going to leave that as it is. Cruise throttle 1400, we'll see how that goes. It may need to go up, it may need to go down. Pitch throttle ratio, I'm not going to change any of these at the moment because I don't know how this wing's going to handle exactly. I always leave lighter direction to the right because that's where I'm expecting it. It can be either way, you can always change it. Control smoothness at 2, that's fine. Alright, everything I'm just going to leave these as they are. Save and reboot. I'm not going to touch programming. At this moment I don't want to put any programming in. Receiver is the next one I've got to touch. And the receiver is going to be a serial based receiver, crossfire, that's fine. I'm just going to leave that as it is, save and reboot. So we're telling it it's a crossfire receiver, which it will be. Modes, I'm not going to touch modes at the moment. Adjustments, no. GPS is now moved to the GPS. It used to be in configuration. It's an iBlock 7, which means you can go up to 10 Hz rather than 5. Ground assistance type is European. Use Galileo, why not? More satellites equals better. Automatic daylight savings EU, so any dates and times will match what I'm expecting. Save that, save and reboot. Yep, there we go, took our time. Magnetometer. I've never ever had a magnetometer on any of these, so I'm just going to accept it at the moment. Mission control, not going to touch it. OSD, I'm not going to touch that at the moment because I haven't got the files handy. What I will do is I have a standard OSD that I put on all my models, so I'll go to one of the others with DJI and I'll just copy it across. Yeah, this is not right yet. It has to be on PAL anyway. Oh, HD for this gives you the wider screen. So apart from that, I'm not going to touch it. LED strip were not turned on. Sensors were not turned on. Sensors, we can just check that it's, yeah, it's seeing everything. Even barrow, that's good. And if you, I've never seen a magnetometer. Look at that, it's working somewhat, which you'll see. Tethered logging, no. Black box, no. CLI, that's fine. Let's just save all that. Rebooting, and that's the basic setup done for iNav.